Hi, this is Diamond Runway, and today we're going to have a look at Ensoniq Fizmo. Ensoniq Fizmo, yeah, real-time transwave synth, whatever it means, from Ensoniq. It's just a synthesizer that is kind of I have personally a love and hate relationship with this synthesizer. The funny thing is that it may seem that it's got so many different controls, so many different knobs, and that's okay, bearing in mind that it was created, I think, around 1998. At that time, people kind of again started to fall in love with analog thingy or virtual analog synthesizers with lots of knobs and everything. So, kind of a sonic one. Okay, let's have another one with knobs maybe this time, because the previous synthesizers, like for example, TS10 or 12 or SD1, whatever, VFX, I think, they had just knobs basically and sliders. So they kind of decided, okay, let's do something with the knobs as well. But this is very misleading, unfortunately, because the whole power of the synth is actually inside of the device when you, and only when you, connect that thing to a computer, and then use a librarian to modulate, and not modulate, but to change and to edit lots of these different parameters. So you may be kind of super happy to see all these knobs and buttons here, but still there are a lot of different options that are only available via computer, which is so sad. I don't know why. Well, this is what they did. Okay, so what's the architecture of sound in this thing? So the whole patch, yeah, is consists of 4 sounds. So it's like 1, 2, 3, 4. I here have only one active, and this sound has got, each sound has got 2 oscillators, but this one has got this oscillator here. You can hear that when I press the key. I think I'm pressing the key here. There's some movement happening in the wave. It's very similar to wavetable kind of thing, yeah? Right, okay, so what exactly is happening? Let me show you. Okay, so I think the synthesizer has got around 50, I don't remember how many, but around 50 digital waves, which when they're played, you only actually, without any modulation, you only hear a portion of it. Like you've got this one cycle sample and it's basically looped, and then there's some kind of a frame. So even though a wave is kind of complex here, you know, it changes. At one moment when you have no modulation, you just hear this part, for example, yeah? But the funny thing is that you can scan through the whole wave. I think that's why they call it transwave, with this frame, and then as it goes, for example, it's hooked up to a modulation, and then as it goes like this, you will have this sound. That was funny. No, it wasn't. So that will kind of put in some life into the wave itself. Obviously, you've got different types of waves with different types of textures. Some of them are very melodic and tonal. Some of them are atonal and kind of very gritty, you know, harsh maybe. But this is done on purpose, because from these components, and you can use lots of components here, you can have this complete patch. So again, one sound, 2 oscillators, so that's 4 times 4, so 4 sounds times 2 oscillators. You've got 8 oscillators. Every oscillator has got, I think it's different modulation path, and different independent LFOs, for example, which is kind of fun. And that's what Fizmo is about. You know, the funny thing is, oh, maybe not so funny actually, but the good thing about this synthesizer is that it doesn't pretend to imitate any famous synthesizers. So you probably know that when you when you go and you buy one of these new shiny synthesizers today, they will always have like a Moog lead or Roland plucks or Roland strings, whatever the maker is, yeah. Some synths from practical, reasons. They actually have the sounds that are very, I would say, ready to use, well known, super soft, that kind of thing, yeah. Fizmo is completely different. It doesn't really care what kind of sounds it has. The presets are, very whimsical, I would say. Very kind of, I don't know who designed these sounds, but from today's, I would say, producer perspective, I would say they are very impractical, very weird, even, yeah? And that's the whole magic of the Fizmo. And thank you very much to the designers of this synth that we have such a weird synthesizer on our hand. If you listen to some presets, some of there are kind of, pads, very atmospheric, very organic, but, you try to think, where can I fit it in, in my production, yeah? There are a lot of things happening in the background. The sound is now four sounds, so the whole patch is four sounds, each probably playing two oscillators. Let's check this one. So we've got two here, two here, two here, and two here. Right, okay, so that's 8 oscillators. So that's why there's a lot of movement behind. But you know what? Let's have a look and try to maybe start designing our own sound, okay? Right, okay, so what's this? I think this is one of the default sounds that we have. Actually, I think I imported that from Librarian. It's just sounds like a saw, maybe. Yeah, just a very simple wave. So let's have a look what we have here. Okay. Okay, so we've got some samples as well here. Okay, I've got a problem with my mic. Sorry, I'll try to readjust it. Right. Sorry for that. Okay. So now we got this. Okay, so this is interesting, right? You've got this I button, so it's Fizmo, F-I-S-M-O, so Z-M-O, yeah, so Fizmo. And then I think you can scan through the wave a bit here. Let's have a look. Okay. Kind of detuned sound, but as I said, that's on purpose because you can use it with some other waves and then just to make this complete sound a kind of texturized, gritty sounding something, right? Lots of components. Not everything is sweet in your kitchen. You've got some pepper, you've got some salt, maybe you've got some sugar, so you can mix all these things here and then create your own patch. Let's search for something that maybe sounds. Okay, what about this one? Right, okay. So let's use this one as an example, okay? So now I can see, okay, so the modulation on this wave is off. So I will set it to LFO. Right. And then there's the shape of the LFO. I think it's, let's call it maybe, let's have it, I don't know, let's maybe do it like sinus. Or are you on this one, okay? And then speed. Okay, so now another thing that is super fun is obviously the effects section, which is also kind of botched. Is that the word? Is that the word in English? Botched. Well, it's not perfectly rendered, so to speak, and because you can have you can have either insert effect or reverb. You cannot use, for example, delay and reverb at the same time. It is, however, possible with a computer librarian. You can mix those two, so you can feed in, for example, your delay into reverb or the other way around. And there's so much more effects flexibility, but only available from a computer, which is also sad because you would think like, oh, I've got so many knobs here. I've got so many different buttons and everything, and it's so nice that I have everything under my fingertips and it's so much control. Well, no, unfortunately, no. You need to have a computer with a librarian to get to the really like to the bottom of it. And then, for example, ADSR is on a computer. It's much more complex. It's a multi-stage envelope for filter, pitch, and amplifier. Not available here, just 4 knobs, but on a computer, I think it's 6 or 7 stages. I don't remember now. Thank God we got this librarian pretty much modern, contemporary, that's the word. Contemporary, so you can use it with your newest PC or Mac, yeah, so no problem. Right, but what I was going to show you is, I don't remember, so effects section, what was it? Oh yes, I remember, okay. The super fun thing is, and it's not only for Fizmo, but it's also for, I believe, TS10 and TS12, is a looped envelope. So when you go here, you will have this button, and it's called mode. And there's like a normal mode, so just normal, I would say, scans through all the stages, like attack, decay, sustain, release. And then you have this, and I don't quite remember this one, but I know this one, this RPT stands for repeat. And this is great because you can have a looped envelope, and then it's kind of reactivates the sound if you keep your key depressed here, and it's basically just looping the sound with the whole going through the whole stages of attack, decay, sustain, and release. Let's have a look how it works, okay? So I'll just play maybe C here, okay? I'm trying to now to shorten some of the stages of the envelope to make the loop quicker, yeah? Release probably doesn't matter because I keep the key depressed, yeah? So it's sustain. Super short decay, so the loop is now super short. I'm trying to speed up the LFO, so the changing of the frames, the scanning speed on the transwave is faster, yeah? I'm keeping these keys depressed all the time. Okay, let's try some other waves. Where was I? Okay, this one. Sorry. Super funny. That could be useful for some sounds. So because of the fact that there are so many sounds that are kind of, I don't know, out of this world in a way, that you don't really hear a lot of these sounds from Fizmos on records, because they are like, people. I've heard so many people, so many stories from people saying that, Fizmo sounds strange. It doesn't have the power. It can't do Moog lead and so on and so forth, which is kind of funny because Fizmo is not for that. It's a synthesizer that is kind of special in a way that it's like you ask it, okay, can you give me some nice leads? And then it answers to you, no, but I will give you this. And then it will take you to a regions that you never knew existed in, I would say, in sound design, especially if it comes to when it comes to pads or things like very long leads, evolving sounds and textures. You plan to do one thing and you end up with something totally different that you initially wanted, and it's absolutely fine. It's like a spaceship. Some people on in the comments said that you never know where you are with Fizmo, but it's good. It's good because it's so much fun to explore things with that synthesizer. I just wish it could be a bit more approachable in a way that we could have all the options right at your fingertips, and not just via connecting it to a computer and then firing up this librarian, which is fine, which is very nicely made basically, but it loses this kind of immediacy of a synth, especially the immediacy that you would expect by the host of knobs that you have here. But well, apparently there's much, much, much more inside, but you need a computer for that, yeah. It's also not very stable, unfortunately. And I am a lousy sound programmer, I know. So I think you've got a sound here that is made up of 4 sounds and then 2 oscillators per sound. Let's try to silence them off and see how this sound, what the sound is composed of, okay? Okay. Okay, so that's this. 2 oscillators. Okay. What about this one? There's some textures. Oh yeah, okay, so now it develops something. Now? This is completely atonal. Basically, just adding some kind of percussive or some kind of a shade or blur to the main tonal sound, which is fine. And then this is one sound and this is only one wave here, so one oscillator, which is okay. I think there's some kind of modulation. No, it's probably not this one. It's modulated by something else. Okay, so now when you, I think, activate all 4, so that's 7 oscillators. I think that's the easiest way. Not my sound, definitely. That could be mine. Just 2 oscillators. What is quite interesting about the synthesizer is that it teaches you that when you have a sound A and B and you mix it together, then it will not be A and B, but it will be a C sound, something completely different. You may imagine that, okay, so if I mix a snare with a, let's say, a bongo or whatever, and then I can you think that you can imagine how it's going to sound, but the reality is always different. So this is very much the same with Fizmo. So when you think that you've got the two waves and you put them together and then you try to balance the volume one against another, then very it's very, I would say, developing, and it's very interesting to see how uh, the outcome is something totally different from what you have imagined in the first place. And it's great. You may think that you know the outcome of, okay, I know this wave and I know that wave, and when I mix them together, I will receive something like this. No, that the sound is usually something completely different, and it's another joy, and it's another, I would say, some kind of a good information for all of us, that even if we have a synthesizer in which we think that we have explored all the sounds, then when trying to put sounds together and mix different waves, the outcome might be so much more than your expectation. I remember that from the times when I started to play ages ago with my Roland MC303, and I just run out of the drum sounds, and then by putting crazy things next to each other, like I would say the bongos or snares with hi-hats, then it started to actually put in and give out some kind of a fresh air, because I thought that, oh, maybe it's just a snare and then snare and hi-hat, so boring. Yeah, but together they sound completely different. And especially when they are, I would say, fired or triggered at the same time, and you don't actually perceive them as two separate sounds, but just like one mixture of sound that basically is fresh, I think. Yeah, and it adds up to the palette of sound that you have by default in any of those synthesizers or any of these sound making machines that we have now on the market. Right. I don't know if that makes sense. I think it does. I hope it does.